I'm curious to see what happens. And I think these are possibilities. I think hopefully for CP3's future, a contender is in the horizon, but also depending on what Sam Presti wants to do, needs to do what's best for his organization. I mean, CP3's contract could also be a salary dump, and that's on the table as well. So I think there's a multitude of options, and it comes back to how much the Oklahoma City Thunder, Sam Presti, want to sit down with Chris, with his agent, figure out. I don't know where the balance is between making sure to do right by him or just do what is best for the organization. Miami was obviously interested in Russell Westbrook. Do they have the same interest in Chris Paul? To me, that's something that I'm not certain it's the same one-for-one. We would have taken on that contract. We would have taken on Russ. So we're just going to go ahead and take on Chris Paul. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And in the buyout, I know there was an initial thought about it, but that's a lot. I can't see in any capacity that being an option. So when we talk about him going to a contender, I'm not quite sure where that necessarily falls in line.
You mentioned listen, Chris Paul's owed $121 million with 3 years left on his deal. We've never seen that type of buyout in sports history. Right. I mean, like that's not a thing that exists in the NBA. I mean, I guess this offseason has been unprecedented in a lot of ways. But what are they going to do? Right, 80 cents on the dollar of 121 million's what? 104 million? No, whatever. $96 million. That's not going to happen. Like, and so he's going to play next year and the year after on a non-contending team. Probably Miami. There's some other teams that maybe would get involved. Maybe if he starts the season with OKC, maybe the old New York Knicks come calling. Who knows? But he's not going to be able to be on a contender until the third year of this deal when he is bought out and he can sign on with the team for very little money. That's what's happened here. Whether it was because he and Harden went bad, whether it was partially because he and Harden went bad and partially because Russ came available, whether it was just because Russ came available and CP3 got old quicker than I saw him getting old. I mean, he was awesome his first year with the Rockets. He was even better in the playoffs until he tweaked his hamstring. And from that moment forward, he just looked like an aging, once great player who once a month would channel the greatness, not once a week. He only had more than 25 points 5 times all last year, including the playoffs. He hasn't played 60 games in the season since he was with the Clippers. And so it's not great what's next for Chris Paul. This is more along the lines of what we've seen from a Dwayne Wade at the end, even though he's better than Dwayne Wade was at the very end.
Carmelo Anthony.
Carmelo Anthony, like that, he's not going to be out of the league. But because of his contract, a contender can't take him on. And so he's going to be playing not meaningless basketball, but not championship contending basketball. And that'll be a first for him since his first couple years in New Orleans when he was a young player.
And the thing he doesn't have going for him that Dwayne Wade had going for him, people like Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was always a part of the glue, always a part of the solution. At a young age, he deferred to LeBron. That was one of the smartest things he could ever done. Now, we're trying to appropriate that to players like Harden, that to players like Russ. That's why I don't say that that's going to happen, because very few players do that. Dwayne Wade was able to extend his career. That's why he went out with people exchanging jerseys at half court, because they like Dwayne Wade. Melo, on the other sense, would he adapt? Could he come off the bench? Would he be a role player? Would he play defense? Would he rebound? Would he play the 4? Nah. He wouldn't do those things. So his career was cut short. If you're not going to be a great leader, if you're not going to help in the locker room, if you're not going to help them develop young players, you become a problem at the end of these contracts. That's why Dwayne Wade went out like that, because people like him. That's not the word on Chris Paul. As great as he was, right now he's in a bad situation. And if I'm OKC, enough's enough. I ain't getting ready to do what you maybe pointed to that, you know something, what's best for the player. Paul George, I did what was best for him. I just traded Russ, that was best for him. I'll be damned if Chris Paul, if I'm getting ready to do what's best for him. It's time for Sam Presti to do what's best for OKC. Continue to stockpile all those draft picks. Don't put all those young players out there with Chris Paul. Trade him away. You're rebuilding now.
Well, that's where I think what might be best for them is. I think Chris Paul. I think they might be.
If that's whatever options. Sure. I'm not trying to lean on. Oh, what's better for old Boo Boo over here? No, I'm getting ready to do what's best for OKC.
I don't think OKC is doing that. I don't think Sam Presti is doing that. You don't collect 15 first-round picks over the course of the next 6 drafts by always doing what's best. And I think with that being said, this is a very different situation than where Chris Paul, when we're looking at the contract, what Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets were trying to do when they were in Houston and trying to make a trade, trying to figure out how to improve your team. For Sam Presti and in Oklahoma City Thunder, he can unload this by including some of those first-round draft picks.
Yes.
And so he can find a place, a team that is still rebuilding, that is towards the bottom of the league, that's willing to take on that salary because they're not contending for a title. They've still got years away from that, so they would be very attracted to some of those first-round draft picks, and that's an easy way to get off of it. But back to your original question, a contending team, which I think it doesn't seem like there's a feasible way to get to that point.
But when we see what OKC has to include with CP3 to get a team to take him, I think people might look at the trade that just happened through a slightly different prism. The Rockets included draft picks. They got back Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul. The Oklahoma City is going to have to include sweeteners, maybe probably a couple of those 15 first-round picks they have in order to get a team to take Chris Paul, which is, again, if there were no salary cap in the NBA, Chris Paul is still, one of the 75 best players in the league. Like, he's still a valuable part of a team, but not at 35% of your salary cap. That's what kills him.
Your Father Time is coming for the banana boat. Somebody better warn LeBron. They got Melo, got D-Wade, got Chris Paul. Now, they already got LeBron's hair. But Father Time is coming for the banana boat.
He's got the headband.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.